Porsche told us gas was dead. They killed the Macan, buried combustion, and promised an all-electric future, but in August of 2025, they pulled the kind of twist that makes you spill your coffee, confirming an all-new, gas-powered SUV for 2028. The same company that swore off engines is now bolting one back in. So is this genius strategy or the most expensive U-turn in Porsche's history? Now, let's start from the jump. Porsche once stood on stage and basically gave combustion a funeral. They told us the Macan was finished. No more new internal combustion engine platforms were coming, and the flat six heartbeat that defined the brand for decades was dead and buried. Their message was simple. Porsche's future was electric and nothing else. In fact, they weren't shy about it either. By 2030, Porsche promised that 80% of their global sales would be fully electric. Not hybrids, not plug-ins, full EVs. That's how serious they were. The Macan was supposed to be Exhibit A. In 2024, Porsche launched the Macan EV as the direct successor to the original gas-powered Macan. Europe didn't wait around. Strict regulations forced Porsche to axe the gas Macan there by mid-2024, and globally, Porsche doubled down, confirming that by 2026, the gas Macan would be dead everywhere. The script was written. Porsche was done with combustion, moving on to batteries and quietly shutting the door on gas engines for good. But then came August of 2025, and Porsche pulled the kind of plot twist you'd expect from a soap opera, not Stuttgart. Out of nowhere, they confirmed they're developing an all-new gas-powered SUV. Not a refresh, not a final edition, but a brand new combustion model launching in 2028. Which begs the question, what happened to gas is dead? Did Porsche just forget their own funeral speech, or is this the kind of strategic backflip that proves they're playing a much smarter long game than anyone realized? On July 31st of 2025, the whispers finally became headlines. Multiple outlets confirmed that Porsche is developing an all-new gas-powered SUV. Then came the kicker. CEO Oliver Blume himself poured fuel on the fire, teasing that this mystery SUV would be very, very typical Porsche. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, in Porsche speak, it's code for don't worry, it'll still handle like a dream and growl like something that wants to eat you. But here's what makes it even more intriguing. It won't wear the Macan badge. That name now belongs exclusively to the electric Macan. Instead, this gas SUV will carve out its own identity, likely sitting on Audi's PPC, the premium platform combustion. Yeah, that's right, in a world where automakers are inventing acronyms to make EVs sound futuristic, the Volkswagen Group has quietly kept a platform alive with combustion proudly stamped in the middle. You almost have to admire the audacity of it. And this is where the announcement goes beyond just another car reveal. It's symbolic. Porsche is openly breaking its own electrification storyline. For years they told us combustion was history, but now they're admitting the funeral might have been a little premature. So why the sudden U-turn? Why would Porsche, after preaching the gospel of electrification, bring gas back from the grave? The answer isn't one thing. It's a cocktail of pressures that made the old EV-only script impossible to stick with. Let's start with regional demand. In the US, Porsche's biggest non-European market, buyers still love their gas SUVs. The Cayenne and the old Macan have been cash cows because they give Americans exactly what they want. Big, powerful, long range, and no waiting around at a charging station. Meanwhile, in China, the market that was supposed to be the crown jewel for Porsche's electric future, things didn't pan out as planned. Yes, EVs sell there, but the luxury SUV segment hasn't exploded the way Porsche hoped. The demand for electric Porsches in China just isn't matching the hype. Then there's the money. Porsche's fat margins don't come from base Taycans, they come from high-performance, high-priced gas models that enthusiasts keep snapping up. The EV side of the business has been far less profitable. Battery costs are stubbornly high, resale values are shaky, and customer enthusiasm isn't keeping pace with Porsche's ambitious projections. When your bread and butter comes from combustion, pulling the plug too fast can starve the business. And finally, we have the Volkswagen Group strategy. Remember, Porsche doesn't live in a vacuum, it's part of a giant corporate family. And that family has decided to keep developing shared combustion platforms like Audi's new PPC, which spreads development costs across multiple brands. That means Porsche can jump back into the gas game without footing the entire bill themselves. In corporate speak, that's called synergy. In plain English, it's cheaper to hedge your bets. Now, add all that together and Porsche's U-turn stops looking desperate. Instead, it looks like survival, adapting to markets that aren't moving at the same speed, keeping the money flowing and leaning on the group's resources to make it all work. Now here's where things get really interesting. This isn't Porsche just dusting off the old Macan blueprints and calling it a day. No, the new SUV is expected to be built from the ground up, likely on Audi's PPC platform, which is essentially the combustion counterpart to the EV-only PPE architecture. Now, if that acronym soup doesn't mean much, think of it this way. It's the same bones Audi will use for the next Q5, but with Porsche's fingerprints all over it. So, while the platform is shared, the character won't be. Speaking of which, early speculation points to a range of engines. A turbocharged 4-cylinder at the entry level, with V6 options sitting higher up the food chain. Nothing has been confirmed yet, but it's very clear this won't be some limp compliance car. Porsche knows buyers expect performance, and they won't slap their badge on something that feels like a rental crossover. And then there's the geography. This new SUV isn't designed for everyone everywhere. Europe, with its tightening emissions rules, is likely to remain EV-only territory. That's where the Macan EV will hold court. But Porsche is smartly aiming this combustion SUV at the places where demand is still strong and growing: the US, China, and the Middle East. These are markets that still want horsepower, engine noise, and long-range practicality without the headache of charging networks. In fact, this plays neatly into Porsche's broader survival strategy. They don't need to keep combustion alive across the whole lineup, but they're keeping it alive where it matters. In models like the Cayenne, the Panamera, the 718, and now this new SUV. Porsche's message is clear. They're not abandoning the past entirely. Instead, they're threading the needle, leaning into EVs where they must, while keeping combustion beating in markets that still demand it. Now, here's the part that makes Porsche's pivot even more fascinating. It doesn't mean they're abandoning electrification, far from it. EVs are still written into Porsche's long-term story. The Macan EV is already here, a Cayenne EV is officially in the pipeline, and a 718 EV is on the horizon. But what's becoming clear is that the timeline is shifting. Some of these projects are being delayed, reshuffled, or reprioritized as Porsche takes a harder look at which markets actually want these cars right now. It's a show of flexibility, yes, but it also risks confusing the brand's messaging. Are they the future of electric performance, or are they the last stand for gas-powered thrills? At the moment, Porsche is trying to be both. And that balancing act is where the stakes get real. The potential rewards are obvious. A gas-powered SUV lets Porsche scoop up buyers who aren't ready to plug in, keeping them in the family instead of losing them to BMW, Mercedes, or even Lexus. It stabilizes profits at a time when EV margins are under pressure. And maybe most importantly, it keeps Porsche's image tied to that performance gas heritage. The sound, the feel, the visceral character that EVs still struggle to replicate. But there are risks, big ones. Regulatory backlash is lurking, especially in Europe, where lawmakers have already drawn a line in the sand on combustion. There's also the perception problem. To some, Porsche could look like it's backpedaling, betraying its own bold promises about a clean electric future. And then there's the money question. Developing dual powertrains isn't cheap. Balancing EV investment while funding a brand new combustion SUV could strain even Porsche's famously strong margins. So this isn't just a product gamble, it's a reputational gamble. And Porsche is betting it can walk that line without losing credibility on either side. What makes Porsche's U-turn even more striking is that they're not the only ones quietly tapping the brakes on their EV rush. Bentley, for example, recently pushed back its all-electric deadline, admitting that customer demand and infrastructure just aren't lining up with the political promises. And it's not just Bentley or Porsche. Across the luxury sector, brands are rethinking those overly aggressive electrification targets they trumpeted just a few years ago. What we're seeing is an industry-wide recalibration. a collective realization that the road to full electrification is going to be longer, messier, and a lot more expensive than the press releases ever admitted. Porsche isn't an outlier here, they're simply one of the first to admit it in a headline-grabbing way, so what's next? Well, the clock is already ticking. Between now and 2027, Porsche will be deep in development mode, testing prototypes and refining this new SUV. Expect spy shots on the Nürburgring, leaked patents, and plenty of speculation as the project takes shape. Then comes 2028, the official launch window when Porsche plans to put this combustion comeback on the road. If you want to track its progress, keep an eye not only on Porsche's teasers, but also on what Audi is doing with its PPC-based Q5. The overlap will be hard to miss, and it'll give us an early glimpse at the hardware Porsche is about to turn into its own performance weapon. So, here's the big question. Is Porsche pulling off a clever survival strategy, or is this just a desperate reversal dressed up as very, very typical Porsche? Are they rewriting the rules of the game or admitting they never believed their own electrification gospel in the first place? We want to hear what you think. Drop your take in the comment section below. Is it a smart hedge or embarrassing backpedal? And while you're down there, hit like if you enjoyed the breakdown, subscribe if you want more deep dives into the auto industry's biggest plot twists, and ring that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you want to keep the story rolling, check out our other videos. One on the EV gamble that's collapsing across the industry, another on Porsche's profit crisis, and yes, even the one about the CEO exit drama that still has people talking. Porsche's story isn't over, it's just getting louder.